So this is actually taking us to the end of the Megillah, before we start from the beginning. So it says, Lekayim es igeres hapurim hazois hashenis. So the pasuk says that Queen Esther, daughter of Michael and Mordechai HaYehudi, wrote with full authority to ratify, Lekayim, they translate over here, to ratify, to establish the second letter of Purim. So what's the second letter? So page 36 over here in Megillah.
It's the one that supersedes Ahasuerus' decrees, or adds to them.
So this is after the after the Gzera was annulled, and they're establishing to celebrate Purim. So they send out a letter that everyone should celebrate Purim, but then they send out another letter that everyone should celebrate Purim. And the question is, why do you need to have two letters? Why do you need Hashenis? Why do you need the second letter if you already had the first one? So Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yehuda said, originally they established Purim in the city of Shushan. And later, it is the following year, with the second letter, they established it as an obligation throughout the entire world. So there was two stages according to this. In the first letter, they were just celebrating it in Shushan, and in the second letter, they established to celebrate Purim in the entire world. And the note on the bottom, it mentions that this teaching is difficult to understand, since from the plain reading of the verse, it is clear that even the first letter, Purim, was established throughout the entire world. So it's a little bit of a problem with what it says in the Gemara here. It doesn't tell you the answer. It says a few places to look. Pnei Yeshua, Riaf, and Rashash who address this issue. I'll just mention outside what I saw from the Rashash. He says that when it says that Achashverosh ruled over 127 medinas, like countries, so not all of them was he like in charge of directly, that he had like full control over it. A lot of them he was like kind of calls Melech Bekipa, kind of the king of the world, but not really. Like he didn't actually have so much direct power on each place. There was a lot of places that had their own rule, their own kings, and
What were they under him?
Yeah, they were under him, but not so direct. Not as like what he said. Obviously, Achashverosh had a lot of power, but certain places his power was not as revealed.
Distant provinces
that are
paid
further
tribute, so he wouldn't attack, he would protect them, but otherwise he would leave them alone.
Yeah. So he was making this distinction that when it says in the Megillah to kill all the Jews, chas v'shalom, which are in the countries of Achashverosh, the Jews that were under the most danger were the ones that are directly under Achashverosh, the one that Achashverosh, But then there was also other countries where the Jews were also in danger, but because Achashverosh was not as in charge kind of those places, his rule was not as strong in those places. That's why they weren't celebrating as much. And then the second letter came to say that they should also celebrate, even the places that the decree was not as harsh. That's how.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
That's how the Rashash explains it. This difference. Okay, now it gets exciting over here. Another teaching from Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yehuda about the establishment of Purim. So how was it established as a Yom Tov? How was it established to read the Megillah? So Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yehuda said, Esther sent the following request to the sages in the year following the Purim miracle. So Esther is approaching the rabbis. And this is what she says: establish an everlasting name for me for all generations.
Oh, that's interesting.
She doesn't say, let's make a Yom Tov to celebrate the miracle. She says, establish me for an everlasting name for all generations. The words in Hebrew are kavuni l'doros. Kavuni is to establish me l'doros, for prosperity, for all generations. Through what? By declaring a festival and requiring the reading of the Megillah. The Megillah is obviously called Megillas Esther. So if we read the Megillas Esther, that's going to be establishing and kind of immortalizing Esther.
Yeah, but kavuni is a different word than kayam.
Then what?
The first verse, lekayam, igeres, that also could be read as established. And now a different word establish is used, a different word,
It's
kavuni.
kavuni.
So kavuni, kavana, means make my intention. Kavana is intention, kavana is concentration and so forth. And kayam is rise up, to establish over.
No,
You know
this
what I'm
is
saying? So
from Korea.
there's a subtle difference in the meaning of the word that both can be translated in English to establish.
Mhm.
So I wonder if there's a nuance to what she's saying that's,
No, no, it might be from the root to make permanent.
Right. So over here, kavana is with a chaf and a vav, and it's
Oh, okay.
here it's a kuf, and it sounds the same though.
I thought it was the same word. Okay.
But it's a nice point
I
you're
was never
making.
good at Hebrew spelling.
It's fine from the sounding; it sounds the same. But what you're mentioning makes me think the difference between L'Kayim and Koveya. L'Kayim is more to establish something, like to set something in place. Kava means to make something permanent.
Okay.
It's like something which is kavua, makun kavua, like you have a set place where you daven always in it's
okay.
like a set kavuni l'deiros. So this is what she asked the Chachamim, and it's Esther asking. Yeah, it's not
I think
Mordechai.
that's so interesting. No, I was just gonna say that, why is it Esther asking?
And
I
not-
mean, why is it Esther, not Mordecai?
Yeah.
But Mordecai asking to tell the story of Esther, but it's Esther.
Asking about her own story. She's like, tell my story. I want this whole
Yeah,
thing.
I know.
She's saying, make me permanent.
Yes,
Yeah,
make me permanent.
this is like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes, this is a lot to discuss. So let's see.
Yeah.
Let's read first what happened.
yeah.
They sent back to her, "You will incite the wrath of the nations against us." It says that if you write down this story and everyone reads it and we make this whole celebration, the goyim will be angry. You're going to get the goyim angry. Why? For they will say that we rejoice in mentioning their downfall. It's like, okay, we won, but let's not make such a big deal right now because, you don't want to get them angry.
Boy, you'd think that Azia Shemosha would set that precedent.
Not to be afraid.
We're dancing and singing. We're saying, look at what happened. They drowned in the sea, the chariots, and all that.
But
We really.
the Jewish people were in a very different situation after leaving. In the Aziyashir, it says that all the nations were trembling from the Jewish people. And in the Megillah, the Jewish people were trembling from the Goyim until the decree was taken away.
But
So
even now they argue that, the whole incident with the 14 sages who were massacred, they were saying, that the Jews despoiled the Egyptians, and already they were perceiving the Jews as gloating in their victory. So here's another, seems a much lesser gloating over victory than destroying the entire might of the Egyptian army. And why are they worried about redux of something that happened much more heavily before?
saying here that there was just a decree of the Chas v'Shalom kill all the Jewish people. It wasn't just a few people. This was all the Jewish people. So there might be more reason to be afraid, to be concerned.
Yeah.
Possibly. So Esther didn't give up. Esther sent back to the sages, "I am already written in the book of Chronicles of the king of Persia and Media. The nations of the world already see there what befell them at the hands of the Jews," which means it's not a secret. It's written in their books. It's public. It's in the public records. So we don't have to be afraid to write it down in our books. It's already written in their books. That's what Esther responded to their Chachamim's concern. I just read it in footnote 3. Only things that are proved by the king are written in the royal chronicles. The fact that the events discussed in Megillah are written there shows that the kings of Persia and Media viewed the downfall of Haman and all those who were killed as being beneficial for the kingdom. Shalom Avishai.
Hey, shalom.
Oh,
Abishai, when you came in, was the card in the door?
card?
Card, could you just pull the door open? I wanna be sure
didn't
the
try.
card is out of the door.
You use the code?
I used the
Could you
code.
go and see,
Was it-
I'll check.
if there's a card, take it out and just bring it here, yeah, fine, okay. We don't wanna see mine.
Yeah, you're right.
Speaking of which, the card's going out.
So therefore, even if the Jewish people rejoice in recalling those events, will not incite the wrath of other nations against them. The way they're explaining it over here is that if they write it in their books, that means that they see the fact that, the Jewish people survived as something good. All right.
You can keep going. I don't need the recap. I'll jump in.
You'll jump right in? Okay, we'll just get you the page. We'll
Sounds
catch
good.
you. We'll catch.
No, yeah.
That's the page. Is Salika coming today?
I don't think so.
You don't
She's
think?
not feeling too
All right.
great.
Sure. Shalema. Okay, so we'll continue right over here on 37. Okay, so this was a discussion between Esther and the Chachamim, and we still have more to discuss. It says like this: another exchange between Esther and the sages. Rab Chanina, Rab Yechanan, and Rab Chaviva taught, but in the entire Seder Moed, and wherever the group of Amoraim is mentioned, some replace Rab Yechanan with Rab Yonasan. So we have here a group of how many rabbis? I think 4. Rav, Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Yechanan, and Rabbi Chaviva. But some people say that it's not Rabbi Yechanan, it's really Rabbi Yonasan. So either way, Esther sent the following request to the sages: write me. Before it was make me permanent, now it's write me, which is write the story of the miracle of Purim for all generations. So what is this adding on what we asked, on what she added? She asked previously. If we look at the notes, Esther requested that the book of Esther be incorporated in the Kesuvim. So there's 2 things. One thing is to read the Megillah, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be part of the Tanakh. Now Esther is asking, I really want to be part of the Tanakh. So this is what she asked the Chachamim. And again, it's not Mordechai, it's Esther asking this.
In this period, was the oral law already written down?
This is Amoraim, yes. This is after the Mishnah. This is already in times of the Gemara. But they're saying what happened in the times of Esther. So
She feels the story is significant enough. I don't want to be permanent, but to be written down and be part of
the Tanakh, yeah.
Yeah.
So they sent her the following reply: that there's a problem with having Esther as part of the Tanakh. Why? Because there's a pasuk that says, "Have I not written for you 3 times with counsel and knowledge?" So we see here that there's 3 times about something. And this teaches that the obligation to wipe out Amalek is recorded in Tanakh 3 times and not 4 times. So it's very precise. Since we already find this obligation recorded twice in the Torah and once in Nevi'im, page 38, the sages originally opposed including the Megillah in the holy writings. So in the Torah, there's 2 times that it speaks about Amalek. It speaks about it in Beshalach, and then in Kiseitze, and then you have once in Nevi'im. So you have 3. But the story of Purim is a continuation of Amalek, because the whole... So if you would have Esther as part of the Tanakh, you would have 4 times about the story of Amalek. And we know that there can only be 3. So the rabbi said, we can't put you as part of the Tanakh because of this problem. But until they found a verse written in the Torah allowing it to be included. As the pasuk says, it says, write this for a memorial in a book and rehearse it in the ears of Yeshua, that I will utterly obliterate the remembrance of Amalek from under the heaven. So if you look in the Hebrew, there's a few expressions here. There's kesayv zais, it should be written. Zikaron, it should be a remembrance. Basefer, in the book. So write this refers to the passages of Amalek that are written here in Shemais and in Devarim. For a memorial refers to the passages of Amalek which is written in Nevi'im. In a book refers to what is written in the Megillah. So what did they do over here? Basically, they put the 2 times that are written in the Chumash, they count it as 1, because they're both in the Torah part, in the 5 books. Then the Nevi'im, what the prophets wrote, that's number 2. And then now, Basefer, the Kesuvim, that's going to be Esther. So it depends how you categorize it. It's not just about how many times, it's in what category is it. The first 2 are part of the Kesuvim, the next one is the Nevi'im, and the third one, which is Esther, is going to be part of the Kesuvim. Okay, so let's go a little bit more in depth over here. What's going on with that? Esther is asking that she should be established. Why Esther, and why is she asking about herself? It sounds a little bit selfish. She should be asking for the Jewish people, that we should remember the salvation of the Jewish people. Let's look at Insight A. It's back on page 37. Immortalizing Esther. Esther's request to establish me for all generations explained by Rashi to mean that she asked the sages at the festival of Purim and the book of the Megillah be eternally linked with her name, Megillas Esther. If you look in the words of Rashi, Lios Li L'Shem, it should be for me as a significant name. Rashi's source for this explanation presumably is the Gemara's wording, Kisvuni, establish me for all generations, write me for all generations, rather than Kavu'uhu Limea Purim. It doesn't just say establish Purim, establish the days of Purim for all generations, write the Megillah for all generations. But this raises a difficulty. Was Esther seeking her own fame and popularity? Was her own esteem and prominence seemingly implicit in this request so important to the righteous Esther, whom the rabbis in Gemara below classify as one of the 7 prophetesses that arose within the Jewish people? Yeah, so we know that Esther was a great tzaddikus. She was a neviah.
Who are the other 7?
Who are the other 7? So
Deborah, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel.
So the
the
4
four
Imahot.
Imahot.
Yeah,
Devorah?
I mentioned Devorah, yeah. The prophetess. And then there's a few others.
Okay.
We could check later, or maybe
Yeah.
we'll get to it. Okay, so let's try to see one answer here. Possibly Reb Avram Gurwitz suggests that Esther, who had sacrificed herself for the sake of the Jewish people, had a special reason for wishing to be remembered for all eternity. Normally, a person's legacy is perpetuated by his children. True, Esther did have a son with Achashverosh, which was Darius II, but he was and would continue to be raised in the Persian house of Achashverosh. So there's little chance of his growing up to be a practicing Jew. This is very interesting. So because she didn't have like a son that's really continuing her legacy, she wanted her Mesiras Nefesh, her sacrifice, to be remembered. Esther was bereft then of offsprings who could carry on her glorious legacy. She therefore requested that her name be never enshrined in the be forever enshrined in the annals of the Jewish history, reminiscent in a sense of Hashem's reassurance to barren people. So there's a pasuk that says, "I will give them within my house and within my walls a monument and a memorial better than sons and daughters. An eternal name will I give them, which will never be terminated." As Radak there comments, although a man's good deeds are what truly perpetuate his name, nevertheless, when someone is found worthy in Hashem's eyes and intentions during his lifetime when performing good deeds were sincere, God inspires people to mention his goodness forever, in the same way that a person's good deeds are related from father to child after his death, as a small fraction of his reward after his death, besides for the main reward reserved for his soul in the next world. So, there's one way is through his children to carry on the legacy, and then there's another way where the deeds that a person did are so great that people always remember them. Indeed, the Chafetz Chaim authored an entire work, Shem Olam, whose name is taken from the above verse in Yeshai, in which he explains to childless people how they should properly go about immortalizing their names. So there could be different ways of a person trying to be remembered. Esther's life was a legacy of self-sacrifice for her God and her people. It was a legacy that she would not bequeath to her progeny, but that might inspire countless generations of her spiritual heirs to do the same, and it was such a legacy that she sought to immortalize. So it's not about herself, it's about her Mesiras Nefesh, it's about her sacrifice that she wanted people to remember. And she couldn't just do... What?
Good.
Yeah.
There's another aspect of this that wasn't mentioned yet, maybe it will be, but in her office, she's queen of the most powerful nation on earth. She's queen of Ahasuerus's kingdom, 172 provinces. So there's also, not just established for me personally, but established for the sake of my office, the power that she presents. When she's speaking to the sages, she's speaking with a scepter in her hand, you know what I'm saying? And that's kind of an interesting thing. She's saying, in effect, combine that, take the power of my throne, my office, and establish its power in service to the Judaism.
That's so funny because I was actually thinking the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
This is the second time this happened,
Uh-huh.
where I read something like this, and then you're like, no, actually, I see the opposite. Because I was going to say maybe she thinks that she will be remembered as Ahasuerus's wife and the queen of the Persian kingdom, but she would much rather be remembered for her sacrifice and her Jewishness and what she did for the Jewish people, rather than as the queen of the Persian Empire. And her reaching out to the sages was not because and with her scepter, but in spite of her scepter, saying, actually, I want to be much more than just the queen of this empire. I want to be immortalized with this
That's
Megillah.
not the significant piece. The
So it could be both.
piece
It could
is
be,
not the significant piece.
Right.
it could be in combination.
Could be. But
As a Jew,
it's-
as a Jew, and as a prophetess, and as a world power,
right.
establish what happened here.
But in a way, it's like when you're a queen, it's like already kind of known that people will remember you, right? That your name will be written in books. And yet she still went to the sages and said,
Right.
I want
Make
you...
sure I'm known as a
This
Jew.
book.
Exactly.
Make sure I'm known as a Jew.
We need this book, we need this story, and I want to be in Ketuvim.
I'm really Jewish. If you want to study the Torah, you have to study
Exactly.
me.
Yeah.
I'm part of the
Is
Tanakh.
there an order on how those 5 books are assembled? Ecclesiastes, Lamentations,
So,
Esther.
Oh.
In support of what you're saying, she did not try to establish her authority over the Sanhedrin.
there is
She
an
went to them hat in hand, as it were. Yeah.
There's Esther is considered. I think we're going to get to it soon. Esther is considered the last one of the Ksuvim, or the last miracle which is recorded as part of the Tanakh. Yeah. So let's just. So this explains why Esther is asking to be remembered. We still have a question. What about Mordechai? It's a little bit interesting that it's coming from Esther and not from
I
Mordechai.
refer to it as Megillah's Esther.
So that we'll discuss soon. Another very interesting thing I found. So this is obviously Torah Sheba'al Peh. This discussion between Esther and the Chachamim. It doesn't say it so clearly in the Megillah, right? This is what Reb Shmuel Bar Yehuda is telling us. The discussion that Esther asked that it should be remembered, and what the rabbis answered back and forth. But I found today from the Maharsha that if you look closely at the actual wording of the Megillah, you can kind of see this back and forth between Esther and the Chachamim, and it's very interesting how it's when you read the Megillah this year, you might think of this Gemara. And I tried to do some translation here. Yeah. Okay, so the first piece we just read inside, basically Esther says to establish me for the future generations. They said that might cause the Goyim to be angry because you're making a whole celebration. And she sent back, I'm already written in the books of Madai and Paras, so it's nothing new, like it's already recorded. So where it says Megillas Esther, so it says, Vayichtov Mordechai Sadvarim Ha'ela. Mordechai wrote these words, Vayishlach Svarim El Kol HaYehudim Asher B'Kol Medina Samalach HaChashverosh HaKarevim V'HaRachaikim. So Mordechai is writing a letter to all the Jewish people to keep Purim.
He's a member of the Sanhedrin, or he's head of the Sanhedrin.
He's a member of the Sanhedrin. He was actually lowered a level because of the story. That's what it says. But first, according to what it says in the Megillah here, Mordechai is the one who's writing to all the Jewish people to keep Purim. Then, you go a few psukim later, I'm skipping a few psukim, but it says, Vatichtov Esther HaMalka Basavichayil, Mordechai HaYehudi. Here you have both. Mordechai and Esther are writing. Es kol taikif, L'kayim es Igeres HaPurim Azois Hashenis. So Esther is writing a second letter. Why does she need to write a second letter? because Mordechai's letter was not accepted, because people were afraid, like what people said, the guy might get angry, so that they weren't so ready to really make a whole celebration of Purim.
This goes to the power thing. Mordecai only has power over the Jews. Esther's letter
Carries more weight.
carries the weight of the throne.
This goes back to the scepter idea, right?
Yeah.
And then look what it says: Vayishlach Svarim. Then so Mordechai sends they send these letters again. Al Kol Yehudim, El Sheva V'Esr Meya Medina Malchus Achashverosh Divrei Shalom VeEmes. I was always wondering in the Megillah, what are these words of peace and truth? But based on our Gemara, we understand, because it wasn't peaceful. Before, they were worried that making a whole celebration of Purim might cause more anti-Semitism. They thought celebrating the downfall of the enemies could get the guy more angry. So that's why Mordechai's letter was not good enough. Esther had to say that, don't worry. And you read the next pasuk, it's very strong. Umaymar Esther, the word of Esther, Kiyam Divrei Purim Ha'ela, that's what really established this Purim, V'nichtav v'sefer, and then it was written in the Sefer. And then you go to the end of the Megillah, it says, V'chol Masei Takva Yugvarasei, the whole story of the strength, Uparshas Gedulas Mordechai Asher Gidlei HaMelech, that Mordechai was elevated to this high position, Haloyhem Ksuvim al Sefer Divrei Hayamim Lamalchei Madei Paras. They are all written in the chronicles and the books of the king of Madei and Paras. Why is it that important for the Megillah to tell us that it's written in the Persian books? This explains why the Jewish people were not afraid to keep Purim. This is what the Gemara said. Esther responded, she said, it's already written down, you don't have to be afraid. So this whole Gemara and the back and forth, the conversation, is kind of hinted in the Megillah. It's very interesting. This is how the Marsha explains. He says, if you look closely at the words of the Megillah, you could find this discussion. Okay. Now go to the next page over here. So in the handout. So as we know, there's Talmud Bavli and then there's Talmud Yerushalmi. Now, a lot of times it's not the same. You can find certain contradictions between the two Gemaras. So we have a Gemara of Talmud Bavli of Megillah, and then we have Talmud Yerushalmi. So in our Gemara, we just said, Amar Rabbi Yishmael bar Yehuda shalcha lahem Esther lachachamim kavuni laderes. That was Esther, the one who requested that I should be established. And Rashi says, what was she asking for? Liyamtiv v'lakriya, to read the Megillah liosli l'shem, to remember my name. Okay, that's what we had. Now let's compare it to the Yerushalmi. Look where it says Megillah Talmud Yerushalmi. Rabbi Yirmiyah b'shem Reb Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak says, Ma asu Mordechai ve'Esther. Here you have both of them. It says, Kasvu Igaris, they wrote a letter, V'sholchu l'Rabbeinu, Shekein Amr lahem, Mekablim atzam aleichem shnei yamim halalu b'kol shana. So according to this, it was Mordechai and Esther writing to the other rabbis, even though Mordechai is also a great rabbi, but he's asking the general opinion. Could we establish 2 days of Purim, and Shushan Purim for every year? Amar lahen, so the rabbi said, Loi dayenu. Is it right? But Loi dayenu, is it not enough? Is it not enough? Hatzaros habayis aleinu. We have enough tzaros. We have enough problem. Elashatzam reitzim lahaisef aleinu oitzaros shalhaman. You want to have another Purim story? What? Chazru v'kasv lehni garashniya. That's why they wrote another letter. Hadu d'chsiv l'kayim sigaras Purim azayis hashenis. So how did they respond to this? Ma'ya kasaba. Amr lehen midavar zata misyarim. Are you afraid of this? Hari ksuva mala bar koyim. It's already written in the annals of the kings of Madai and Paras. It's basically the same thing in our Gemara. The only difference is that according to the Yerushalmi, it's Mordechai and Esther. It's not just Esther asking. So it's a big difference. Is it?
Yeah, but there's a real difference in what they were saying. The one is saying, we're afraid of what the Goyim will say, or the Goyim will hate us more. And this is more like, Are we supposed to remember these difficult days, like along with all the other difficult days we remembered it, you know? Shouldn't we just like, breathe a sigh of relief and move on and forget about them is the implication here. Are not the troubles which come upon us enough, you want to add to ours the trouble of Haman.
Which means
Maybe remembering the troubles of Haman. Or does it mean the direct hatred?
I hear that, but I think it sounds it's more like that you might add more problems to us if
So the troubles of hatred might be general anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Okay, I get you.
Yes. So so if you look closely, there's a difference between what they were asking for in the Bavli and in the Yerushalmi. In Bavli, Esther asked for two things, mainly to read the Megillah, and it should be written in the Ksuvim. In the Yerushalmi, it's about making it as a Yom Tov,
Yeah, I was just gonna ask about that.
to celebrate the 2 days.
So she's asking,
So she's asking more about the reading and the writing of the Megillah,
so who's asking?
and Mordechai and Esther together are asking about the to make it a Yom Tov, to make it a Yom, to make it a day.
Oh,
And if you look closely in the Megillah, this is also hinted, continuing in the handout, L'kayim es yemei ha-Purim ha'ela, to establish the days of Purim bizmaneim, kasher kiyam aleim Mordechai ha-Yehudi ve'Esther ha-Malko. And it speaks about establishing the days, Mordechai and Esther are mentioned. But then when it says, Umamar Esther kiyam divrei ha-Purim ha'ela v'nichtav b'sefer, about the speaking of Purim and the writing of the Megillah, there only Esther is mentioned. So it's a very interesting difference. So you have Mordechai and Esther, which are involved in the Yemei, in the day of the Yom Tov, all the things that we do during the day, but specifically about reading and writing the Megillah, there Esther is involved.
so they also are involved in the things that we do on the Yom Tov?
They were both involved, but Esther is more specifically connected to the reading and writing of the
No,
Megillah.
that's not what I'm.
Oh.
So the observance is,
Yeah.
observance versus writing the history.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Regarding,
no, go ahead.
regarding the two letters that went out, so the first letter was the mysterious hidden one. That was sent out with just a preface.
Those are the evil decrees.
Hmm?
These are the final decrees.
So my question is, the letters that she's talking about were the first letters, the sealed ones, and stuff like that, to arm yourselves. That was sent to the Jews or to the Goyim? That was sent to the Goyim.
There's 4 letters total.
So
There's the prepare for an announcement to the Goyim, prepare to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a letter that said rise up and strike the Jews. And then there was a letter that said the Jews may strike back. And then there was a letter that says declare this a
There's a
holiday.
letter saying rise up and strike the Jews?
No, but strike. Yeah. The first letter was to the Goyim a year in advance. Prepare to prepare yourself with arms for instructions that will follow. That was the first hidden letter. That was from Ahasuerus with Haman to the Goyim. Then the second letter from Ahasuerus to the Goyim was rise up and strike the Jews with the arms you prepared. And the third letter was Esther and Mordecai with Ahasuerus' approval, saying the Jews have permission to strike back because he couldn't rescind the first two because a letter from the king can't be rescinded. And the fourth one was establish a holiday.
But here we're not talking about the goyim or fighting back,
I think it was.
right? But
No, that was my
here,
question.
so to clarify, here we're talking about 2 letters, both of them about celebrating Purim. It's a letter from Mordechai or Esther
They went to the Jews.
to the Jews, and there's 2 of them.
Right, okay,
The first
yes,
letter,
so that's new information to me.
right?
Yeah, okay.
Because it looks like, so they're sending out one letter to keep Purim, and the Jewish people are like, we're not so sure about this.
There's a lot of letters found there.
They were afraid. We just, we don't want another attack. And then they have to write another letter, and Esther's like, don't worry, it's all recorded. It's established. Yes, so but they're both letters to the Yidden. It's not about fighting back. It's about being Mekayim Purim, to establish Purim. So going back to this difference, this is very interesting. It comes out that Mordechai is more involved in the different observances of the day, like Shalach Manas, or just celebrating Yom Simcha. And Esther is more connected to writing it down, to remembering the story. So why is that?
There's a precedent in Hanukkah. Did Hanukkah come before or after this?
So Hanukkah is later.
Later.
Yeah.
So in Hanukkah, we don't really discuss the wars. We focus on the miracle, the dreidel, the lights and everything. We really push the wars down, and I don't know if they took that precedent from this argument.
And we don't remember it in a way of writing it. We don't. It's something some people read Megillah Santiachos, but it's not
part of our.
It's not part of Tanakh, and not everybody reads it.
Right. So the same debate is happening there as here, and it may have been inspired by this. And even now, the question is Holocaust Remembrance Day versus lumping it on Tisha B'Av. We see it happening even in our current time. Do we celebrate Holocaust? Do we commemorate Holocaust Remembrance Day, or do we wrap it into Tisha B'Av and include it there?
Very good. Yeah, that ties into that. So let's see. We're actually going to discuss this. So on the last page over here. So in Tehillim, in Psalm 22, there's a song called Lamnatseach al Ayeles Hashachar. That's Psalm 22, Mizmar LeDavid. So what is this Ayeles Hashachar? It's on the last page over here. What?
The morning star.
Morning star. So Rashi has a few explanations. First, Rashi says...
Esther, Ishtar. Venus, the morning star.
Rashi says, Shem Kli Shir. According to one opinion, it's an instrument.
It's what?
It's an instrument, Ayeles Hashachar. In Tehillim, it's full of instruments. It says that this song was sang on this instrument. So maybe Ayeles Hashachar is an instrument. That's the first thing. Davar Acher. Another explanation is Al Knesset Yisrael. This is one of the names of the Jewish people. Shehi Ayeles Ahavim. It's just called, it's a doe, a female deer, Ahavim, which is loved. Hanishkafa Kamay Shachar, which looks as beautiful as the dawn, as the light shining in the morning. That's Ayeles Hashachar. V'Rabbeinu darshuhu be'Esther. The rabbis explained this kapitel is referring to Esther. So it's very interesting. You look at the kapitel Chav Beis, it says, Keli, Keli, lama azavtani, like you're speaking to Hashem, why have you left me? And that's said that Esther had said that. She was asking Hashem, like, please don't leave me. If you look at the whole kapitel, it's referring to Esther. So what's so significant about this Ayeles Hashachar? So there's a medrash Yalkut Shemaini, and it says like this: Davar Acher Lamnatseach Lemishehu Kaifetz Ka'ayol. So a deer, we jumps, it sprints Umeir La'olam B'shas Chashecha, and brings light to the world in a time of darkness. Ve'emasai Hu Meir Balayla. When is the dawn? It comes right after the night. Afal pishahu laila yesh ba'ira. Even though it's dark, but there's really light there. And it explains, Halavana v'hakechavim mazales. The moon, the stars, and the constellations. Emasayu chayshech. When is it really dark? Ba'alois hashachar. Right before dawn. Why? Halavana shaykas. The moon is going down. Hakechavim nechnasin. The stars go back. V'hamazales holchem lehem. When is the biggest darkness? Right before sunlight. Right. Hashem brings the dawn, the light from the darkness, and brings light to the world. That's Esther. That's the story of Purim. It's Ayeles Hashachar. It was the darkest time, and then the light came out of it. Then there's another story here. Reb Chia bar Abba of Reb Shimon ben Chalafta have a mahalchin bekritzta. Bahada bikasa de Arbel. They were walking in this place. Vero Ayeles Hashachar, and they saw the dawn rising, the morning star. Amar Reb Chia kachi gulasan shel Yisrael. Reb Chia said, "This is how the Jewish people are redeemed." Amralai hainu d'chsiv ki eshev b'chayshach havaya early. It says, even when I'll sit in the darkness, Hashem is light unto me. Betchila hi me'ira kima. It doesn't get bright right at once. Starts slowly, gradually. Achar kachi menapetzas uba. Then it starts shining very brightly. V'achar kachi para v'rava. Kach Mardechai. So if you look at a story of Purim, it's a gradual process. It doesn't become daylight, middle of the day right away. First, you have V'tchilo Mardechai Yoshev B'shar HaMelech. First, Mardechai is just sitting there in the king's palace, around the king's palace. V'achar kach v'yikreis HaMelech Esther HaMalka. Then the king loves Esther. Achar kach v'yikach Haman asalavush v'sasus. Afterwards, Haman is riding Mardechai through the streets, the parade. Achar kach vayislas Haman. Afterwards, they're hanging Haman. Achar kach vatzam kisva leYehudim. Then you have another letter. Achar kach Mardechai yatzam lifnei HaMelech. V'achar kach leYehudim ha'sa'era v'simcha. So, like this, like the sunrise.
But not all at once.
Not all at once. It's a process.
High oral.
The Oira, the great light, comes only at the end of the story. Yeah. So back to this thing of Esther being written from the Gemara in Yuma. Amar Rav Asi, Lama nimshala Esther l'shachar. Rav Asi said, why was Esther likened to the dawn? And Laimalach, Ma shachar saif kol halayla. Just like the dawn is the conclusion of the entire night, so too Esther was conclusion of all the miracles performed for the entire Jewish people. So Esther is considered the end of the miracles. The Gemara asks, Va'ika Chanukah, but what about Chanukah? Nitna lichtayv kamrina. We're only talking about miracles that are written down as part of the, Tanakh or written down in general that we read it. So it's a different type of miracle. The Gemara is telling us over here that Esther is the end. Just like you have the Shachar, you have the end of the night, that's it. So Esther is the last miracle which is recorded and written down. So here we have to think about this. What is the difference between a miracle which is written or a miracle which is unwritten? And also the question, why is Esther the one who's so involved in writing this, right? So if you look at the story of Purim, Mordechai and Esther played very different roles. Mordechai was more involved in the spiritual part of the decree. He was the one who was, getting all the Jewish people to fast, to come together to do teshuvah. He was more involved in the spiritual part. Esther, she was doing the practical things. She had to go to the king, speak to the king. She was making these parties. She was taking care more of the physical part of it, right? So that was in the bad times.
If you will, the political part of it.
Yes. Now, from the other side, once the miracle happens, so what are they celebrating? So there's the spiritual part of the victory, the fact that the Jewish people are returning to Hashem now, and it says that Purim was the time when the Jewish people really accepted the Torah, so there's that to celebrate. And then there's the salvation that the Jewish people are alive, we're alive physically, we weren't killed.
That's no small thing, by the way, because when the Goyim say the Jews abandoned the Torah, and they give various places where they say the Jews abandoned the Torah, we point to Purim and say, well, no, this is
where we accept it.
Where we accepted it again for the second time voluntarily. No mountain over our heads. We get melted into Persia.
Mm-hmm. So these are the two sides of the story. You have Mordechai, which is more the spiritual part of it, and then you have Esther, which is more the physical part, that taking care of the details. So now, if you think about also the way we celebrate Purim, this is also the difference. When you do Shalach Manas and you do these different observances, where are you remembering Purim in your head, right? When you're giving someone a gift of food, you're not saying the story of Purim. Where are you thinking about Purim? It's in your machshava, it's in your thought, which is more spiritual. But when you're reading the Megillah, you're expressing it with your mouth, especially if it's written down. That is making the miracle not just something which is in our thoughts and our heads. It's ba'olam hazeh. It's really in this world. It's written down. This explains why Hanukkah is not written. Hanukkah, we know, was mostly a spiritual victory. The main thing that we focus on Hanukkah is the light, it's the oil, it's the neshama, right? Purim, it's actually the main emphasis is on that we're alive, the physical part. That's why Esther, the one who saved the Jewish people, like who was focusing more on the physical salvation,
actions were
she was the one who said, I want it to be written, I want it to be read, because this is a very, there's a big deal,
Concrete.
very concrete.
Mordechai lamala, Esther lamala.
So I read over here, Mordechai is more lamala, more like the above, Esther is the lamata. Mordechai is Yimei Purim, it's the day, machshava, zikaron, the remembrance. Esther wants the kriya, kasiva, dibur umasa, to speak and actually bring it down.
In a true Jewish fashion, you need both.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
wouldn't happen without Mordechai's urging,
Yeah, that's true.
and it couldn't happen without Esther actually performing the acts.
Yeah, that's true.
And Jewish body and soul together is something pretty unique to Judaism.
Yes, and another aspect, the way to look at it is, Purim was considered a miracle which was enclosed in nature. Purim it's considered a nes, it's a miracle, hamalubash b'teva, which is enclosed in nature. Which means, you could say that, Esther was the queen, so she had this connection to Achashverosh, so he would do anything for his wife. Is it from God? Did he see anything miraculous here? You could say, okay, he saw this beautiful Jewish girl, and it's a hidden miracle. But if you think about it, why did he pick specifically Esther out of everyone else, and how all the timing came out, and everything was perfect? So this is it's more of a hidden miracle. Let's say the splitting of the sea, that's not enclosed in nature at all. It's just the split. There's no. So within a miracle which is enclosed in nature, there's two parts. Either you could focus on the miraculous part of it, or on the way the miracle played out in nature, which is also, it's the way Hashem is showing Himself through acts of nature. So do you focus on the miracle part, or do you focus on the way it's enclosed in nature? That's the two sides of Mordechai and Esther again. Mordechai is going to focus on the spiritual, on the nes, on what's miraculous about it. Esther, she's like, look how it played out amazingly, that even nature is agreeing with Hashem. It's like, it's become, it's melubash b'teva.
What does it mean, Labash B'Teva?
It's
wrapped in nature.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Labush. Right.
lavush. It's
Hadassah haya Esther.
and this is a beautiful thing. It says that Esther had another name. It's Hadassah. Hadassah. And it says Hadassah he Esther. What's the difference between Hadassah and Esther? What does Esther mean? Esther means hidden.
Where? That's the rest.
Esther, it's hidden. Hadass is like a myrtle. It says tzaddikim are called
This is like a what?
like the hadassim on the lulav, like a myrtle, the myrtle branch.
Like an eye shape.
That's the one where all leaves are clothed.
Yeah, the three together.
Got it.
Yeah,
Hide the stem.
Got it.
yeah. So
Modesty. The myrtle is a representation of modesty.
right. So it says Hadassah he Esther. Although it looks like she's Esther, it's hidden, but it's really Hadassah. There's really the tzaddikus that's behind there. This is connected to what Avishai was saying earlier. She's the queen of Persia, but she wants to be remembered as Hadassah. She's really this tzaddikus. She's really a Jewish, special Jewish woman. Yeah. So just to conclude about this Shachar, so Esther is called Ayeles Hashachar, the morning, the dawn. So it's brought in the first halacha of Shulchan Aruch. It says someone has a hard time waking up in the morning, especially in the cold, in the winter. So he says here, even if your afim yasienu yitzrei b'chayrif, even if your Yetzer Hara comes to you in the winter and say, Eich tamod baboker, how are you going to wake up in the morning? Ki akor gadol, it's very cold, the snow, whatever. Yasienu b'kayitz, or in the summer when you don't have, the nights are shorter, he says, how could I wake up from my sleep? I didn't get enough sleep. Lo savata mishnasecha. Olav lakum. Shete'ata ma'erer hashachar. It says that you should awake the dawn. V'lo yehehu me'ircha. The dawn should not wake you up. Like David HaMelech said, Ura chavodi, ura hanevel v'chinar a'ira shachar. It's speaking about his different instruments and his harp. And he says, a'ira shachar, I will wake up the dawn. Ani me'ir hashachar, Ve'ein hashachar me'eroti. I will wake up the shachar, and the shachar will not wake me up. But
It's funny because he was famous for having those harps in the windows, where as the dawn came and the breeze blew, it would the harps would sound and wake him up. So it's kind of funny. He says the dawn will not wake me up when he had harps in the window, where the dawn would literally wake him up.
he didn't say that he says ur of hanevel v'chiner. He says that the harp should wake
Oh, the
up,
harps will wake. Okay.
but not the dawn.
So not the light, but
Not
the
the
breezes,
light.
They come before the light. Okay.
And that's maybe it's his alarm clock, but what's the significance over here? Very interesting. One of the commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch says that this idea of the dawn is the light, right? What is the light? This represents like inspiration from above. So what this halacha is telling us is something very deep. Don't wait for the inspiration. Don't wait for the light to wake you up.
Got it before.
Put in the work.
Ani meir hashachar. You should bring out the light. This is what the whole teaching of Esther was. It came from the darkness. It's not, the light when everything is shining. That's not a trick. But the trick is that when you wake up in the morning and it's harder, and you have this Yetzer Hara telling you, it's not light yet or whatever. So that's what's telling you. Hadassah hi Esther. In the darkness itself, we have the power. The Ayeles Hashachar. It's the end. It's the end of the night when it's the darkest time. Not only that light is coming, you have the power to bring out the light in that deepest darkness. And that's why Esther is written. Hanukkah, it's light, it's very special, but it's not written. This idea of being permanent is specifically about Esther. It's written because it came from a very, very dark place and was worked on, and yes, that's the power that Esther had that even Mordechai didn't, because Mordechai again represents the light, right? Esther represents working in the darkness. That's the trick.
Active process.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And don't wait for the dawn. Bring it out yourself.
Yeshikayach.
Esther is partnered with Ishtar, and Ishtar is Venus, the morning star.
Oh.